All right, so I promised you guys a video on some of the questions that you guys asked via Instagram, and Dan, my husband, is here to help me or play the interviewer role, I guess. So he's going to ask the questions. I think we have 3, and then I'm going to provide some answers, and then that will be it. So first question.
Right, so first question is, do you ever allow your clients to not track while away?
All right, so we went to Florida this past weekend, and I think that was the theme for some of the questions that came up. And I usually ask my clients a few things. The first question I'll ask is, where are they in their journey? So someone who just starts out, maybe they're a couple weeks in, a couple months in, maybe they're still really motivated and they don't feel the need to get a break. And in that situation, yes, they probably should keep going on following their macros, their diet, whatever they're following. Another example in that regard would be someone who's on a strict timeline. So making a weight for a meet. In that instance, yes, you probably should keep things reined in because you want to make sure that you're on target for your meet. Now, if you are on a more sustainable long-term journey, then yes, if you want to not track for that week while on vacation, or you want to have a little bit more mindful eating, a little bit more moderation, have a drink, have some dessert, but don't do anything crazy, then that works as well. The only time you're ever really going to get in trouble is if you blow it out of the water and kind of drink a lot, eat a lot of high calorie foods, and then most likely you'll come back a lot heavier than when you left. Now, you got to also take into consideration, what do you feel you need? So sometimes people, like I said, when they just start out, are really motivated. They don't feel that they need that break. And in those instances, just keep on going, ride it out, awesome. Now, if you feel like you've been dieting for a really long time and you could use a week off or a couple days off from not tracking, I'm totally cool with that, as long as you're okay with what that results in. And so when I tell clients, if you want to not track, I am okay with that, as long as you're going to be okay if that means you gain a couple of pounds. And if they are totally okay with that, then we're on the same page and we'll move forward. Because whatever happens after that vacation, we will still work in the direction that we were going in. It just might take a week, couple weeks to pull off what they put on vacation potentially. And if they're okay with that, we're good to go.
Okay. I'm going to go a little off script here. So when clients are away, it sounds like it's a give and take, right? If they come off their program for a little bit to enjoy vacation, which I'm sure everybody appreciates, as long as they're okay with kind of adding that to the back end of their timeline, it sounds like it shouldn't be any love lost, right? It kind of goes into the next question though. How do you recommend clients tracking while they're away?
So there's a lot of things you can do, and I'm probably going to miss some of the bullet points that I had thought out, but you have to take into account quite a few things. One is, where are you staying? So I think the hardest thing people struggle, or the thing that people struggle with the most when they're traveling, is knowing how to pack or knowing how to get their meals and where they're getting them from. And it does take some preparation going into something like that, so that way you're setting yourself up for as much success as possible, keeping in account that there are always going to be variables that you can't control. But are you staying in a hotel? And if you are, does that hotel provide free breakfast? If so, what does that include? Is it something that fits in your macros or something that you can eat, or do you need to provide yourself breakfast options? Are you near food stores? So if you're near grocery stores, and if you are at a hotel, maybe you can go to the grocery store, pick up some things that are really quick and easy, like Greek yogurt or oatmeal. There's a ton of different options, or maybe not traditional breakfast options, but they're ideas. If you are staying in an Airbnb, probably your best option. You can cook whatever you want, assuming you're at a place that has a stove, an oven, microwave, all that kind of stuff. Let's see, what else? are there meal prep services in cities? This was a big one. Someone brought to my attention a couple years ago, and I remember thinking like, oh, that's so smart. Why didn't I think of that? But when you go to big cities, there's meal prep service companies all over the place. So check the area, see what's available, see if they even deliver to your hotel or where you're staying, because sometimes that's an option. Or just take an Uber and go pick it up, go to the grocery store in an Uber, call your hotel if you're staying at a hotel to see if they have a microwave, a fridge, so you know you can keep and buy some perishable items. And then bring what won't perish. So the big one for most people is protein, because that's the hardest to find most places. So what I usually recommend is protein powder, collagen peptides if you don't do dairy, whey protein. Beef jerky is a really easy one. There's a ton of different beef jerky options. Just try to find one that's a little bit more low in the sodium. Fruit that doesn't perish would be oranges, apples, things with harder exteriors. Berries, obviously, are going to be all over the place if you bring them with you when you travel. They're going to get mashed up and probably not very good.
You get a smoothie.
Yeah. So things that are going to keep their shape and, take a few hits and be okay. And then nuts are also a really easy fat source. So if you're predominantly filling your meals with veggies, fruits, you have fats in the form of nuts, which are really easy to make up at the end of the day. Because I always find when you go out to eat or you're going to a conference, for example, and they are providing you food, you're probably going to be able to find carbs and fat in every meal. It's the protein that's really a struggle. And if you save up the fat and carbs and later on you realize, okay, you still have some room at the end of the day, then you pick up those fruit options or carbs you can find pretty much at any gas station. And then you have the nuts to make up some fat as well.
So one thing that I found to be really helpful when traveling, I don't track, I don't use a scale. I did for a number of years, and now I just do mostly like mindful eating and portion size. But one thing, like Kylie mentioned, it seems like fats and carbs are always really readily available. So just kind of being aware of how much fats and carbs you've consumed in the day and kind of planning it out. I agree. I found the easiest thing for me is to save those things for the back end of the day and then kind of get a bigger dinner and go to bed with a full stomach. But just being mindful of when you go out to eat, asking what things are cooked in. A lot of the times, they add extra butter or oils to like steamed vegetables, your rices, things like that make them taste great. But a lot of the times the restaurant can prepare those items without the extra fats added, and that'll give you a couple extra things to keep in your back pocket, for the end of the day, so that you get your proportions in. And a big thing, I travel a lot, is having the protein bars or items on hand. I get hangry when I'm driving around, so I've always got a couple in my backpack, like my carry-on, and then I'll buy a box or two and I'll put them in my check bag. But that prevents me from making a bad food choice. It lets me kind of put a buffer between the hangriness and making a quick, easy choice to where I can eat a protein bar or something that's decent, and then gives me a few more time minutes to go get something else that's maybe a little bit better for me. So just having those items on hand are really helpful. You can add them into your tracker, scan a little barcode, whatever, you kind of know what you're getting, and then you can make a better choice later. Has helped me quite a bit in my travels.
And I know a lot of people ask about bars and bar recommendations, and there are so many out there, and I feel like there's so many that keep being produced, and there's always new brands. So what I would say is go to a Whole Foods that has like 50 different options, and take some time and look through your bars and pick something that makes sense for you from a macronutrient standpoint and an ingredient standpoint. So I tell people to avoid whey protein concentrate as an ingredient, and really any bar that looks like it has like 50 ingredients in it. You just don't know, probably if you can't read what the bar contains, you probably shouldn't have it. So stick to more minimal ingredient type bars, things that aren't, for me, for example, I try to find one that's a little bit on the lower end when it comes to fat, because fat just really adds up over time. So I'm not going to pick a bar that's 10, 15, 20 grams of fat, but I'm going to pick a bar that has some protein and it has natural ingredients, because that's what's important to me. So just take that time, do some research, so that way when you're going to travel, you already know what bar you're going to pick up. So you just go to the store, you buy it, maybe you have some you buy a big box of it and keep it at your house. So that way you just throw some in the suitcase and you're good to go. And then same thing with the restaurant that Dan mentioned, is you can ask any question you want. And another thing that it's like, over time of doing this, I'm exposed to it, and it's like, oh, I've been doing this for how many years, and I never, you never think of these things of like, how many eggs are in an omelet? And so when I was out to eat with a couple games athletes, like, I don't know, 2013, someone asked that question, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so simple. Like, of course you can ask how many eggs are in an omelet, or how many ounces of chicken is in this dish that I'm about to order. Even if it's like a Thai dish, most likely they know, because they want to make the meals very consistent. So you can always ask, and you can always ask for double portions. So just like Chipotle, just ask for a double portion of chicken if that's what you're getting. And then, like Dan mentioned, ask how it's prepared, so that way you know what you're getting in your dish most likely. And you can always ask for things more simple, like steamed instead of cooked in butter, most likely.
Right on. So we talked about vacation and how you track when you're on vacation, whether or not you let your clients take the days off, so to speak, right? They know that if they take some time off on vacation, it has to be added to the back end usually, and not to come too off the rails and enjoy it too much, right? Mm-hmm. But the other question that everybody wanted to know is, do you use a coach for nutrition? And if you do, why?
So what I do typically is I guess I would call it loosely track. So when I'm not focused on anything specifically, I'm kind of mentally in maintenance mode. What I do is track, I would say 90% of what I eat. And that could look like, maybe I track Monday through Friday, and then maybe the weekends are loosely tracked. I don't fully let it go, and it's not a problem mentally for me. I know some people really struggle with it, and it becomes either an addiction type relationship, or they're all or nothing. They can't track at all, or they have to track every single day. I like the mix of both, but when I am trying to make a body comp change, I do track, and I track religiously, because I know it's all about the numbers. So when I'm trying to change my body composition, I need to know how many carbs, fat, and protein am I hitting, and how do I adjust for that. And anytime I've tried to make a pretty good push, I've done several cuts myself, but sometimes I get kind of, I don't know if I'd call it bored doing it myself, but I like learning. So I have hired a couple coaches throughout my years, whether it was doing figure competitions, whether it was just last year for our wedding. And the biggest thing for me is I want to hire someone who has been doing what I do for years, arguably, hopefully longer than I have, who might know some things that I didn't think of, or has an unbiased opinion on my nutrition, what they would do. And I look at it as a really cool learning experience, because I like to learn. I want to see how they're doing what I do, if there's anything new or different that I might want to implement, or sometimes they approach something exactly how I would approach it. And that's kind of cool too, to see, okay, we're on the same wavelength. Like, he's not throwing anything at me that I'm totally shocked by. And I mean, I work with, I don't know how many people, but I would say 90% of the people that work with me, yes, there's always some educational component, but most of it's accountability. And so even though I'm a coach, I still like being accountable to somebody. Not that I can't follow it on my own, but it's just different. It makes me, I know that I have to check in every week. I like that process. I like having a spreadsheet, and honestly, I've created them for myself, and I give my clients them as well. I just like to see data and how it's moving, and I like to have that conversation with somebody about my nutrition, and it provides that personal touch, which is partially why I do that with my clients. So I like all that stuff. So that's pretty much why I do it. And like I said, I mean, we just got back from Florida. I'm being a little bit more diligent now with my macros, but I'm not at a point where I'm going to hire somebody. But you know, if I reach that point, I definitely will, and I like doing it. So
That makes sense. I definitely can see that as far as, if you're looking for a specific goal, you know quite a bit. Obviously, this is your full-time job. You love doing it.
Mm-hmm.
But that is really cool, to be able to work with somebody and, kind of makes it fun, I think, for you, and to diversify. You get more education, you get to see how somebody else does it or affirm how you do it. But just having that, accountability to, filling out a sheet. If you were trying to be a bodybuilder or a professional athlete, you would hire a professional coach. So it kind of makes sense to where if you have a goal, that maybe, right, like a lot of people get to where they are after years of either, poor eating, under eating, whatever the case. It doesn't just come off overnight. But having somebody who's a professional be able to guide you through that journey, I think is really cool.
And I don't think there's very many coaches in general, whether it's CrossFit coach, whether it's weightlifting, figure, just a nutrition coach in general. I don't think there are many that don't work with other coaches. And I think a lot of people recognize that, well, I could imagine with fitness, I would probably predominantly do what I like doing, not what I necessarily need to do. And that's 100% why I would hire someone to do my own fitness, or I would probably not do very much cardio anyway. So same thing when it comes to nutrition, like you want that unbiased opinion of someone telling you this is what you need to do, because you don't want to have that conversation with yourself of like, but should I really cut more carbs, or am I okay here? So I think that's why most people do it, and it's a good thing. So
right on.
All right, I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you guys liked it, maybe we'll create another one, and hopefully they'll get really good from here on out.
Yeah, hopefully I get better at this, but until then.
Yeah.